Welcome to APTN National News Daytime on this Tuesday. The Montreal Police Department has taken stock of the year 2025 and discussed its priorities for the new year. One initiative, still in its initial phase, impacts Montreal's Indigenous communities. APTN's Stephanie DeSave now starts us off.
D'entretenir le lien puis d'accompagner cette femme-là jusqu'à la fin des procédures, c'est tout un défi pour 1000 raisons.
There is already a police liaison, but Montreal Police announced that in addition, a new detective surgeon has been added who will be dedicated to improving the relationship with Indigenous women in an approach based on the needs of Indigenous female victims.
Donc, on est en train de regarder comment on bonifie notre équipe puis qu'on crée un lien. Une fois que la plainte elle est prise, comment on entretient ce lien-là, puis construire la confiance pour que les femmes aillent jusqu'au bout et aient le support.
It's all part of the police's desire to build closer relationships with all communities in Montreal. The executive director of the Native Women's Shelter of Montreal views the news favorably.
I mean, the thing is that as long as they are working with the Ishkway team, as long as they are reaching out to Simone, there's a lot of times when people, like our community members, go missing and she's the last one they call. So that's an issue.
Ishkway is a project created by the Native Women's Shelter to address missing and murdered women in the city. Its coordinator confirms that the addition of a new officer will make a difference in the field.
Because otherwise it can be very, very difficult to communicate with the institution of policing when a report is made and no communication is given back to the family and no follow-up is done. It makes it very difficult. And until recently, that was all on the desk of one person.
A new officer will also ensure continuity in Ishkway's services.
When I'm working on the ground and when responding to missing cases, which can be reported in the middle of the night at any time of day, I was very worried that it would happen at a time when that person would potentially be off work at that moment.
The Indigenous Liaison Officer position was the result of Indigenous community activism in which Nakaset was at the forefront.
By signing this agreement and being part of it, I think they have even more pressure and responsibility in order to do a good job.
In 2015, she co-signed an unprecedented agreement where the Montreal Police committed to improving their relationship and practices with the Indigenous communities. Carlo De Angelis was the first Indigenous liaison.
And then once you understand the reason why the person there is there in this situation and you start building the bridges, well, then you can bring them some help.
He held that position from 2015 until retiring in 2021. He then passed the torch to current officer Alexander Dussault-Blouin, who is Wendat, a role he can now share with his new partner, Detective Sergeant Élise Almeida-Pelletier, who is not Indigenous.
I've already had one big meeting about another issue, about the issue of sexual violence that's being faced by Indigenous women in Montreal.
Nakaset hopes it's a sign of closer ties.
You know, I think it's in theory, it's good. Let's just see how it works out.
It hasn't been officially announced yet, but a social worker will be joining the Indigenous Relations Unit. Stephanie DeSave, APTN National News, Montreal.
Indigenous community members rallied in London, Ontario on Friday to march for missing and murdered Indigenous women and gender diverse people. With more on the significance of Friday's event and what it represents, here's CTV's Rita Ismail.
Led by Indigenous elders, a morning march filled with scent of smudge, song, and ceremony moved through the city's core. The event honors and remembers women and gender diverse people whose lives were lost. Organizers say it is a day rooted in reflection, healing, and a renewed commitment to change.
And this is in honor of missing and murdered Indigenous relatives, to honor, remember, in a day of action to do this work. We always start with prayer and ceremony and medicines. And these are the things that help guide us in our journey as Indigenous peoples.
Participants say the gathering reflects a growing reconnection to culture and community.
There's a healing that's happening. There's a generational shift that's happening that I've heard, and where our people are coming back to our ceremonies, come back to our ways, come back to our language, to our songs and our dances, and coming together in that good way. And there was a time where all this was outlawed, where we could get arrested for doing this kind of thing and gathering in this way.
The route itself also carries deep meaning. Dundas Street follows an ancient trail once used by Indigenous peoples.
It was originally a trail that our people used to so that we could avoid crossing Lake Erie and the treacherous waters there. So this was a safe land route to be able to do that. And so we're honoring our ancestors, walking with them today in remembrance of all those that have come before us and those who have yet to come.
The march paused at the intersection of Dundas Street and Adelaide Street for a ceremonial round dance, accompanied by singing and drumming. A moment of reflection, unity, and resilience shared by generations. For many, a reminder that remembrance must be matched with action.
There is a lot of growth and a lot of progress within society in general, I guess. You know, there's a lot of more work to be done, but it's cool and awesome to feel this and see this happening.
Organizers say events like today's march are meant to keep the conversation going about justice, safety, and healing within Indigenous communities. Rita Ismail, CTV News.
We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how to continue the conversation with us. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. And to read and watch our stories, you can go to www.aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. We have more news after the break. Stay with us. Plus, here is what our Rachel May is working on.
I'm Rachel May, outside the Prince Albert Grand Council Urban Services Centre, where they recently held a roundtable discussion on Indigenous safety. This is in response to recent hospital security events involving Indigenous patients. Chiefs, City Council, hospital security, police and fire came together to form a holistic solution as to what Indigenous people in Saskatchewan are facing. I'll have more on this story on tonight's newscast.
Welcome back. Saskatchewan has 3 Indigenous tourism hotspots nominated for National Indigenous Tourism Awards. From immersive nature experiences to learning under the stars, these businesses are drawing visitors from around the world to learn about Indigenous cultures in the province. APTN video journalist Rachel May visited the Indigenous Tourism Corridor.
Dakota Dunes Resort is the first stop on Kitchiota, the first Indigenous tourism corridor of its kind in Canada. The resort, 25 minutes south of downtown Saskatoon, is nominated for the Launching a New Experience Award. Director of Sales and Marketing, Joy Karen, says the true highlight of a stay here is what guests can learn.
What I want to tell them is that you leave here with an emotional connection and an understanding of Dakota culture.
The new Star Stories experience features a clear cosmic dome just outside the lobby where guests can see the night sky above them. Inside, a smaller inflatable dome offers a 360-degree digital star projection, ensuring visitors can learn about Dakota's star knowledge regardless of the weather. The resort also offers canoeing, golf, a restaurant featuring Indigenous cuisine, a casino, and a hotel, all embedded with cultural elements. Then there's the first Indigenous-themed thermal spa in Canada, set to open in November 2026.
What else do you have to offer in Canada that has all of these elements included? And we're in Saskatchewan, and no one would have guessed that.
Next stop, Wanuskewin Heritage Park. Located 20 minutes from downtown Saskatoon, the park is nominated for 2 awards: Indigenous Destination Development and Outstanding Staff Person. Co-executive director Andrew McDonald says the Destination Award reflects exactly what the park has been working towards.
This nomination is quite special because this really is, as an encapsulation of everything that we do here at the park. So celebration of all these different facets of culture, visual arts, performing arts, culinary arts, but it's also married with the land as well.
Featuring buffalo jumps, a bison herd, and more than 7 kilometers of trails, Waniskewin offers year-round experiences in Northern Plains Indigenous culture. The site is applying for United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization designation. If approved, McDonald says the designation could attract visitors from around the world.
We are so excited to be able to share this special place. This has been a gathering place for over 6,400 years.
Outstanding Staff Person of the Year nominee Brianna Tate is the Visitor Services Coordinator who often steps in to guide tours, teach traditional games to guests, and make learning engaging. She says she is extremely passionate about her work.
I think being able to show that Indigenous people are still here, we're still vibrant, thriving culture.
The final stop on the Indigenous tourism corridor is Fort Carlton, about an hour and 15 minutes from Saskatoon. Pamesca Tourism sits just outside the walls. They have been nominated for the Exceptional Cultural Experience Award. Kevin C. Sequesis is the Director of Community and Tourism Development. He says the site played a crucial role in Canadian history.
Just have to look back, 150 years this year. Treaty 6 was signed right in this very location. So our community and the fort itself, there's always been this kind of relationship, right? It was an economic relationship, trade and the exchange of culture and stories.
The entire operation is run by 5 members of the Beardies and Okimausis Cree Nation. These 5 teepee-inspired lodges are surrounded by nature. They let visitors disconnect from their phones and connect with the land. Guests can enjoy making bannock on a stick over an open campfire while learning the truth about Plains culture.
We're not what the media has typically portrayed us. We're not what people learned in school. There's so much more depth and warmth to our cultures, and the hospitality of our people hasn't been demonstrated in a way that people have really felt.
The Indigenous Tourism Awards are being held in Edmonton, Alberta on February 19th. Rachel May, APTN National News, Pamesca Tourism, Duck Lake, Waniskewin Heritage Park, Saskatoon, Dakota Dunes Resort, Whitecap, Dakota Nation.
Cool stand-ups, Rachel. Longtime Saskatchewan journalist Nelson Bird is our next guest on an all-new episode of APTN's Face to Face with Dennis Ward. Bird stepped away from CTV News in 2024 after nearly 30 years. He's now training the next generation of Indigenous journalists at the First Nations University of Canada in Regina. Tonight, he talks about how he wanted to be on TV at a young age. Here's a preview.
Growing up in the 70s, we didn't see a lot of Indigenous people in the news, and I'll admit I didn't watch a whole lot of news. We didn't have a lot of choices at the time, of course, with one channel. But when I did watch it, we rarely saw Indigenous people in the news, like so seldom. The most people I ever saw of Indigenous history or Indigenous culture in my life growing up was Jesse from the Beachcombers, and I thought, even then, oh, there's one person that, if he could be on TV, maybe someday. It was a dream, far dream. But I always thought, I wouldn't mind being in the entertainment world somehow.
And make sure to catch that all-new episode of Face to Face right after your evening news later today. We now want to give you the results of last week's web poll questions. Over on our website, we asked, is your community dealing with contaminants from industry or the government? 46% said yes, 30% said no, and 24% were unsure. Our second question was, are you watching the Winter Olympics? 49% said yes, and 51% said no. And our last question was, did you watch the Bad Bunny's Super Bowl halftime show? 41% said see, and 59% said no. Thanks to all who took the time to vote. Check back on our website to see this week's new web poll questions at aptnnews.ca. When we come back, we'll introduce you to a Blackfoot cinematographer who wants to pass on what she learned to the next generation. We'll be right back. Thank you for staying with us. Charlottetown -4 and cloudy, Halifax 0. Cartwright -2, the Grand River -12 and sunny. St. Jovite -1, Val-d'Or -1 and cloudy. Toronto cloudy and 3, Peterborough 2. -2 in Sudbury, Sioux Lookout -11. Puckadowagan -23, Thompson -22. -6 in Winnipeg, Barons River -15. Partly cloudy in Swift Current at -2, Regina -4. -20 in Buffalo Narrows, Meadow Lake -18. -27 in Fort McMurray, high level -20. Calgary -20, Red Deer -22. Partly cloudy in Victoria at 3, Vancouver 4. Fort Nelson -18, Prince George -17. -16 in Old Crow, Rock River -10. -27 in Watee, Wrigley -25. -29 in Sax Harbor, Polituck -21. -33 in Chesterfield, Baker Lake -34. -35 in Clyde River and Arctic Bay, -35 as well. Our next guest is Rose Stiffarm, a Blackfoot cinematographer, digital artist, and educator from the Siksika Nation in Alberta. However, she was born and raised in the Suquamish territory known as Seattle, Washington today. She also has family relations with the Cowichan, the Sartlip, and Nakota nations. Rose Stiffarm is a cinematographer and camera operator who has made it her life mission to actively search and involve more Indigenous people in the film industry, including more Indigenous women. In 2009, she attended the Capilano University's Indigenous Independent Digital Film Program, where she later received her diploma. She then went on to receive her cinematography for film and video certificate in 2013, and in her motion picture arts bachelor degree in 2016. Since 2011, she has provided her skills, knowledge, and expertise behind the camera for a total of 13 films, shorts, and TV series, including 2020's Monkey Beach with Grace Dove and 2019's The Indian Road Trip, with many of those productions filmed in British Columbia and the United States. Stiffarm also received a shout-out by actor Lily Gladstone in The Guardian, where Gladstone named a list of great native Hollywood professionals. We recently spoke to Rose Stiffarm from Vancouver. Here's that interview. Rose Stiffarm, thank you so much for chatting with us. I wanted to start by asking you about where you first found your love for the craft. I understand your parents helped, your dad introduced you to the camera, and your mom took you to the movie Smoke Signals when it was first in theaters.
Yeah, well, when I was growing up in Seattle, Washington, go Seahawks, but I was part of a youth theater program called Red Eagle Soaring, and later I was asked to act in a youth short film. And somebody asked me if I ever thought about being on the other side of the camera. And I said, no, not really. That sounds like a really cool idea. And so I ended up being approached after the screening if I would be interested in teaching Native youth how to use film to tell stories. And I was 15 years old myself, and I'm 36 now. So this was 20 years ago. But somebody said, we have this program where we go to the reservations outlying Seattle, and we'd love to train you as a peer mentor. How does that sound? And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a pretty cool idea. And so we eventually created a program called Superfly, where we gave 50 youth 36 hours to create 5 films, and they'd premiere at the Seattle International Film Festival on the big screen. So it would be shot and edited and screened and within just a few days' time. And so it was a really awesome program to be a part of. And so it was that particular program that catalyzed me to want to be a mentor and to go and get all these credentials that you see here on my wall. And so I'm really proud to give back to the community when I can, because the community's always been there for me to help support me in the good times and the bad and everything in between. And so I just love to get knowledge so that I can share it with more people. And if I can help the next generation of filmmakers and artists not have so many barriers to overcome, that's music to my ears. And that's, part of the legacy that I'm trying to leave and moving forward.
Such a great program and so much great opportunities for you. You now have done so much great work over the years. Do you think Indigenous representation within your industry is getting better or worse since you first started?
I would definitely say that it's getting a lot better. And so part of it is there's becoming to be more Indigenous people in certain roles like writers and directing, but I still think that it's a great thing that to work on is having more Indigenous technicians at all levels. And so in my experience, I've been approached numerous times to shadow a director of photography or shadow a director or shadow these people on sets, but I feel like we get more authentic storytelling when we're the ones in charge of what's happening in front of the camera and behind the camera and all the parts in between. And so in terms of representation, I didn't see a whole lot of people that looked like me growing up. And when I do see people like me on screen, it's really exciting, and it just, I don't know, it helps me feel like more as a complete person, I guess. But I know that there's a lot of work to do still, and so it's something that I work towards.
For sure. Award-winning actor Lily Gladstone also previously gave you a shout out, with you being one of 42 names she considers as part of her native Hollywood network. How did that make you feel?
That was music to my ears because in my experience, I work hard, and I also deal with a lot of crabs in the bucket too, trying to pull me down and sabotage me financially. And so it actually came at a really validating point in my career where I had just heard about one of my instructors sabotaging some of my work contracts. And so to get that shout out from Lily was like, she felt like she was the crab pulling us out of the bucket. And so that's the kind of energy I like to have, is like, I know that there's people who want to bring us down, and there's so much lateral violence in our communities.
More support is always better. You have been a previous member of the Directors Guild of Canada. Can you tell us why you want to be at those important decision-making tables?
Honestly, it goes back to financial abuse, and what happens as an independent artist is without that union backing, sometimes we get coerced into projects that we don't want to initially say yes to because we're being overworked and underpaid, and I'm a firm believer in equal work for equal pay. And so in the long term, I would love to join a union. It's been very exclusive, but I'm hoping that through time and putting our heads together, we can find ways to help make it.
Finally, Rose, what words of wisdom would you like to tell other young Indigenous filmmakers out there that you wish you had when you were their age?
I'm just going to share something that some of my teachers have told me, is to reach for the stars. And even if you don't make it to the stars, you might fall in the treetops. And that's something I just have thankfully heard told to me many times as a kid. And I really think that it's so inspiring to see so many other people doing incredible things in the arts and in film and television and live events, that I want to encourage everybody who is told no, that's a silly idea, because I've been told to quit film numerous times, and I know that it's important for us to have representation on screen and beyond, and that it's more than just on screen that we need representation, it's behind the camera too.
Rose Stiffarm is a Blackfoot cinematographer from the Siksika Nation. Rose, thank you for your time.
Pushka. Sugapi.
And that's your daytime newscast for this Tuesday. Dennis Ward is back for your evening newscast in a few hours. Please join us then. From all of us at APTN National News Daytime, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again. Next day.